Hey, this is Bunny. We're back for another little painting session where we talk about Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop role-playing games, and we do it while I paint a miniature. Today we're going to talk about something that sits right at the heart of painting RPG miniatures and terrains, and that is building worlds that feel alive. As you listen, I want this to feel like a relaxed hobby table conversation, the kind you might have late at night while working on a piece and letting your thoughts wander, kind of like mine are wandering right now. Whether you're actively painting right now or just listening for inspiration, this video is about mindset, imagination, and how small creative decisions can transform a miniature from an object to an active part of the story. One of the most common things I hear from people who are new to painting miniatures is that they're worried about doing things right. They want the miniature to be perfect. They want their representation of the terrain or the creature to be correct. They want to know the correct colors, the correct techniques, the correct order of steps. And while technique absolutely matters, there's something just as important that often gets overlooked. Intention. Intention is what turns painting into storytelling. It's what makes a miniature feel like it belongs in a living world, rather than sitting on a shelf as some kind of disconnected object that is never touched. Miniatures for RPGs, especially Dungeons and Dragons, are meant to be touched. They are meant to be used. They are meant to sit on your table while you're wandering through the bushes. They're not meant to sit on a shelf ignored. When we talk about building worlds that feel alive, we're really talking about context. Every miniature, every piece of terrain exists within some imagined space, even if that space is never fully described. A mage's tower, for example, like the one I'm painting right now, well, it's not just a structure, is it? When I tell you it's a mage's tower, what comes to mind? Just calling it a mage's tower implies a character, a purpose, a living history. Asking yourself a few simple questions can completely change how you approach a piece. Ask yourself, who built this? Why here? How long has it existed in this space? Who interacts with it and how often? Is it frequently abandoned? Is it lived in all the time? Does the person who lives in it actually care about the building? Maybe. If they do, it'll look fancier than someone who just doesn't care. These are important questions. Now, you don't need to write pages of lore to answer these simple questions. You really don't. In fact, sometimes the simplest answers are the most effective. And sometimes adding too much lore can just bog you down. Or it can make it so that you don't have anywhere to go. You don't have any way to modify the story because you've established too many details already. Let's think of the tower I'm painting right now. Maybe this tower was built generations ago and has been passed down through an arcane lineage. Maybe it's a relatively recent construction, thrown together by a wizard who needed isolation quickly. If it was thrown together quickly by a wizard with little skill in masonry, maybe it's not that great a tower. But if it's been maintained for generations, it might be fancier, maybe have additions. These things matter because each of these ideas nudges your creative choices in a different direction, even if you never consciously explain those choices to anyone else. This way of thinking comes very naturally to people who love tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. As players and as game masters, we're already used to imagining environments and characters and histories. Miniature painting is just another extension of that creative muscle. Instead of describing a place with words, you're describing it with color, with texture, and with mood, and maybe a little schmutz along the way. One thing that really helps to bring a world to life is embodying imperfection. Real places are messy. Go for a walk, take a look, walk past older buildings, walk past newer buildings. Are any of them perfect? Not really. They've got dirt where you wouldn't expect. A piece of a sign is missing and it hasn't been fixed for a decade. When something looks too uniform or too pristine, it can break immersion because real buildings show signs of wear, repair, and adaptation. In a lot of buildings, you can see where the new addition starts. And if you don't honor that in your painting or in your crafting of miniatures, people are going to notice. Even in high fantasy settings, things age. Weather leaves its mark. People make changes over time. Allowing those ideas to influence your work can make even a simple piece feel grounded and believable. This doesn't mean you need advanced techniques or super expensive tools. You don't. Many of the most effective choices are really subtle. Small shifts in tone, a gentle variation in color, or slight changes in texture can all suggest complexity. Using a flat, one-tone color can suggest simplicity. You don't have to point out these details for them to work. The human brain is very good at picking up on visual cues and filling in the gaps for you. Another important part of making worlds feel alive is thinking beyond the miniature as a standalone object. Consider how it exists in relation to everything else on the table. What surrounds it? Is it isolated or is it part of a larger settlement? Does it dominate the landscape or blend into it? These questions help you decide whether a piece should feel imposing or mysterious, welcoming, or even ominous. Mood plays a huge role here. Color choices and contrast levels and overall brightness all contribute to how something feels emotionally. Warmer tones often feel inviting or active, while cooler tones can feel distant or reserved. Darker palettes might suggest secrecy, danger, or simply age, while lighter palettes can suggest openness or magic that's more benevolent in nature. None of these are rules, of course, but they're useful tools to keep in mind. If you're just starting out on your painting journey, it's really easy to feel overwhelmed by all of this. World building can sound like a big, intimidating concept, but you don't have to do everything at once. Start small. Focus on one idea you want the piece to communicate. Maybe it's simply old and powerful, or quiet and mysterious. Let that idea guide your decisions, and don't worry about the rest. Something I really love about painting RPG miniatures is that it's both creative and meditative. There's room for planning and for intention, but there's also room to let your mind wander. Sometimes you start with one idea, and as you work, a different story emerges. That's not a mistake. That's the process doing what it's meant to do. Let yourself follow these threads when they appear, and you'll be happier with the piece as a whole. This approach, it takes a lot of pressure off. Instead of trying to copy a reference perfectly or meet some imaginary standard that someone else told you you have to adhere to, you're responding to the piece in front of you. You're collaborating with it, in a way. That makes painting more enjoyable and far less intimidating, especially for beginners. For people who play tabletop games regularly, painted terrain and miniatures can dramatically enhance immersion. When players see something that feels intentional and lived in, they engage with it differently. They ask more questions. They pay more attention. They remember it. A simple structure can become a landmark, a safe haven, or a source of tension, all because it feels like it belongs in the world. Even if you don't play games and you paint purely for the joy of it, this mindset still applies. Storytelling gives your work emotional weight. It creates a connection between you and the piece. You're not just applying paint. You're making creative decisions that reflect your imagination and your tastes. So remember, what you want this miniature to look like matters more than anything else. Matters more than the most exceptional techniques. Matters more than the person who tells you it's not good enough. What you like matters. Another thing worth mentioning here is that building worlds that feel alive doesn't require perfection at the tabletop scale. Most people will never see your work from inches away and under bright lights. They'll see it from across the table, often in low or uneven lighting, surrounded by other pieces. What reads clearly at a distance is far more important than those tiny details that only show up in close-up photos. So don't sweat the small stuff. Let it go. And something like the tower I'm painting in this video, it's legitimately not worth the stress. But this is also great news for newer painters because it means you can focus on big ideas rather than tiny flaws. Strong contrast, clear shapes, and cohesive color choices will always matter more than perfectly smooth blends or razor-sharp lines. World building is about clarity and feeling, not microscopic precision. It's also okay if your ideas evolve over time. As you gain more experience, you'll start to notice new ways to suggest age, magic, or even history. You'll develop preferences and habits. That's a sign of growth, not inconsistency. Every painter's journey is a long one, and there's no finish line you need to rush towards. Take your time, move at your own pace, and only pick up new skills and techniques if they serve your painting style. One of the reasons I love this hobby is that it sits at the intersection of so many interests: art and storytelling, gaming and craftsmanship. It all comes together on the tabletop. Painting miniatures lets you participate in world building even if you're not the one running the game or writing the story. Your contribution is visual, tactile, and incredibly powerful. If you've ever looked at a painted piece and felt like it was missing something, chances are it wasn't a technique issue. It was probably an intention issue. Taking a moment to think about story, context, and mood can often do more to elevate a piece than learning a brand new painting method. I encourage you to experiment with this mindset the next time you sit down to paint. Pick one idea you want the piece to express and commit to it. Don't overthink it. Let the process be playful. Let yourself make choices that feel right, even if you can't fully explain why. Over time, those instincts get stronger. And remember, there is no single correct interpretation. Two people can paint the same miniature with entirely different stories in mind, and both can be successful. That diversity of vision is one of the most exciting parts of the miniature painting community. Your perspective matters, and it deserves space on the table. So embrace what you want. Embrace what you see. And embrace what you want to see when painting your miniatures. Don't be afraid to make them simple as you want. There's no right or wrong. There's no you have to use this technique or you shouldn't use this technique at all. The techniques I'm using in this video are simple, straightforward, and easy for anyone to replicate. Basic colors, a wash to give everything a little dimension, but I stayed away from airbrushing, I stayed away from too much highlighting, and other than the wash, I didn't really do any shading. This was to show you that you don't need those special techniques. You don't need to use a technique that you're not ready to use on a miniature that you're just trying to get on the table. Make sure it reflects the history and the lore you're trying to represent, even if you never tell anyone what that lore is. Because it's fine. They don't need to know. You know. Maybe that lore will come up in the campaign, or one day later when you use that piece again and it shows up on the table and its history comes into play. But if it's not a part of the story, that's okay. Just paint the story and it'll shine through at least a little bit. Now, if you're watching this because you love Dungeons & Dragons, tabletop gaming, or RPG miniatures, I hope this gives you a new way to think about your hobby. Painting isn't just preparation for play. It's part of the creative experience. It's another way to engage with the worlds we love. And there's something magical about that. Something perfect in knowing that we can use a paintbrush and a cheap tube of paint to show a little history and a little lore and introduce a little more magic into our campaigns. Now, if you're here because you love art, I hope this encourages you to see miniature painting as more than just some technical exercise, as more than just a way to get those miniatures on the table, to impress your friends who are coming to play. Because really, painting miniatures, it's storytelling in 3 dimensions. It's mood and atmosphere captured on a really small scale and displayed on a tabletop while everyone is telling stories. And it's a skill that grows richer the more you allow imagination to guide you. So stop worrying about perfection. Stop worrying about everything being just so. Embrace the simple techniques. Embrace the beautiful techniques. But more than anything, embrace the story you're trying to tell with the piece you're painting. And yes, I do love red roofs. I know someone's going to comment about the red roof. I do a lot of red on my roofs. It's something I love and something I will continue to do. Maybe I'll do blue here and there, but red roofs are where my heart is at. So that's what a lot of buildings get. That's about it for today. Let me know in the comments what helps a miniature or a piece of terrain feel truly alive to you. I hope you enjoyed this little painting session. I know I did. And I hope you'll be back with us next time. Bye!